Hello and welcome to my stream / if you're listening to it, welcome to the podcast version, I guess. My name is Dr. Rachel Chapman and my content is for anyone who cares about language, technology, and other people. You know what? I'd always parse that as language, technology, and other people, but you could also put a comma in there, right? Language, technology, and other people. Syntactic ambiguity right off the bat. You can tell exactly what type of stream this is going to be. A nerd one. A nerd one for nerds, of which I am one. Cheers. I got my coffee. So we are not going to be talking about research today. We're just going to be talking about news. Research has been moved to a Tuesday stream because I can't do it all together anymore. 4 hours is too long for my voice and my brain. So split up. And today I've also subsectioned. I guess subsect would also be right. Anyway, I have subsectioned the content that we're going to be talking about into a couple different bins. So one is Twitter, the other is jobs, particularly in sort of the machine learning NLP area. Talking about that, obviously very relevant for many of you. Hopefully no one watching is currently unemployed, unless you want to be. And then we're going to be talking about Galactica. Anyway, moving on. I'm not looking forward to it. And also because deepfakes come up a lot in that discussion. We'll also talk a little bit about deepfakes. Some background for y'all there. And then just sort of general other professional stuff, software tools, helpful resources, things like that. And then a little bit of politics. So mostly, updating y'all on court cases that are going on right now. And finally, a little bit of fun. And on a high note, take you into the rest of your day or the rest of your evening, or, whenever you're watching this. So let's hop right in, starting with talking about Twitter. So I'm going to rearrange a couple of these. You may have heard that starting, the announcement was starting last week, but apparently it's been going on for quite a while. There's been a campaign. Oh no, Alexi's unemployed. I hope you find a job you like soon, if that's something that you are looking for. Yeah. Twitter. So starting, the announcement was, I think on like the Friday of Thanksgiving week, which is a US holiday. Also a Canadian holiday. In Canada, it falls on a different day, which I think was the 25th. It was announced that they were going to be starting to reinstate suspended accounts. And they sure did. And it looks like, so this is a project by Travis Brown on GitHub, tracking, quote, notable Twitter suspension reversals each day since Elon Musk took over as owner and CEO. And they are looking specifically at English language accounts with large followings. One sec. Hi, old player. Good to see you. So they're tracking the number of reversals, and it looks like the largest number of reversals actually happened on November 21st. There were 2,465 counts unsuspended. And for those of you who are not familiar, hey, Ralphie, suspension occurs because you violate Twitter's terms of service. So things like harassment, Twitter used to have a COVID misinformation policy, so just lying to people about COVID stuff, which they have since stopped enforcing. So I'm guessing they're probably going to reinstate people who are, again, lying to people about COVID stuff. So if you're on Twitter, you should know that this is happening, and this is perhaps a useful resource to sort of track what types of accounts are being unsuspended. And it is mostly sort of authoritarian right-wing accounts in the US. Certainly that this particular project is tracking. If you are interested in continuing to use Twitter and you don't want to deal with that and some of the harassment that may come with it, there's this product called Block Party. So I've known about it for quite a while. It was developed by I don't think she was a developer advocate, but certainly a very public woman in tech around after she was subject to brigading and a harassment campaign to help mitigate the negative effects of that sort of behavior. You can sign up. There's a free plan. So the tool is, sorry, I don't think I actually said that. I have to remember this is also just an audio medium. Block Party, blockpartyapp.com is their URL, and they have a basic plan which will, help to filter out potentially suspicious accounts from being able to interact with you. And then if you need more features, they also have, more. Hello. Razib? Apologies if I'm saying that incorrectly, but welcome to the stream. And it's specifically to prevent trolling, and it is also something that you can get as a gift to people. So if you're interested to continuing to use Twitter, this might be a helpful tool for you. And I've sort of known about the development and the folks behind this for a while, and I would say that overall they seem to be pretty thoughtful. And they thought about how this tool might be misused to target people. So I'm cautiously optimistic about both utility and sort of general development ethos of this tool. Also, this piece it gave me hives. So this is a Financial Times piece, Undercover Economist, Social Media, and it's by Tim Harford. It was published November 25th, 2022. And basically, the piece is talking about how great it would be if you could just take all of your followers from one social media account to the other. And I cannot stress strongly enough how bad of an idea this is, right? So let's walk through the general idea here, right? So the general idea is, hey, I've got a lot of Twitter followers. I want to leave Twitter, but I want to keep all my followers. So I should, when I go to a new platform, automatically make everyone who is a shared follower on that platform, who has an account both on the original platform and the new platform, automatically follow me. So some reasons why this is not a great idea from a user, privacy perspective. So one, a lot of folks have different accounts on different social media platforms that they use for different things, right? So for me, Twitter is a professional social media account. LinkedIn is a professional social media account. My YouTube, professional media account, right? All of those things are related to my identity as a language technologist and, computational linguist. I have other social media accounts that are not at all related to my identity as a language technologist or computational linguist. I don't want them linked. I intentionally made the decision to do different things on different social networks, and having that autonomy taken away from me, and logging into the network I use mainly for fitness stuff, and suddenly it's covered with computational linguistics content against my, personal desires as a user. This sucks majorly. This is such a bad idea. And also, huge potential for harassment and abuse, right? Like, there's a reason I don't post fitness content on Twitter. And partially it's for branding, and partially it's just, it's a different audience, right? And I have chosen and curated it in that way. And if suddenly, people are like, oh, who's that person? Oh, that's Rachel. And, I am able to connect these two parts of my life that I am intentionally keeping separate for my mental and health well-being. Hate it. Such a bad idea. Awful, awful idea. Hey, Tim Harford? No, absolutely not. Ugh. Razi says, have I tried the new GPT chat released recently? I have not, no. Ravi says, 4 days ago I was in Twitch. When I said I voted Trump, someone blocked me who's a programmer. I'm enjoying the Apple versus Elon Musk Twitter tweets. Yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar, Apple says that they're threatening to no longer carry Twitter on the App Store because, I mean, Twitter is... my understanding from people who know more than me about legal stuff is that they are in violation of a lot of laws right now. In the US, there's an FTC consent decree that they seem to be in violation of. They don't have a GDPR protection officer, which is like a fundamental need. I mean, perhaps they do now, but at one point they certainly didn't. Yeah, they've absolutely gutted the teams that, you do content moderation and safety and prevent illegal content from being posted. So I can see why Apple wouldn't want any of that heat. Yeah. And if it is not clear to people who have watched the channel previously, I am very staunchly anti-authoritarian as a person. And since Trump is an authoritarian, I am staunchly anti-him. Alexi says, my Twitter is a weird mix of Russian politics and machine learning and math. Well, yeah, right. Which, I mean, perfectly reasonable if that's how you want to curate your feed. Other people may have a really good reason for keeping their political life and their professional life separate. Anyway, have I worked with Twitter data? Do I use the official API or scrapers? Great question. So I have done both. And I've also done hand curation of Twitter data when I was looking for something very, very specific. I would say if you are interested in working with Twitter data, double check and read thoroughly the terms of use and the developer's agreement for using the API, because you are limited in what you can do with it. And I often see people doing things that they're not allowed to with Twitter data. And I guess it's sort of question mark whether or not you get got for that, but it's just easier not to do it in the first place, right? That's my stance. But yes, I've worked with Twitter data in the past. All right. And if you are looking for an alternative to Twitter, Mastodon is what I've sort of mostly moved on to at this point. But I had not heard of this platform before. So this story is from Rest of the World. It is by Alex Gonzalez Ormerod, Ormerod, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, published November 21st, 2022. And they're talking about Koo, K-O-O, which is a Indian social media app, and it seems like it's getting a lot of following in Brazil. So if you are, Brazilian or interact with Brazilian Twitter a lot and are, wanting to follow people, perhaps this is a good place to do that. Ulf says, when you change the UX of an app dramatically, then you likely break it. Yeah, right? And UX isn't just... For a social media app, the UX is not just, buttons and features. It's also... a big part of the social experience, a big part of the user experience is the social interaction that you have with other people, the moderation, right? That's part of the user experience of a social media app, is what content you see. Another change that they've made recently, which I'm not a fan of, is showing you a lot more content from people you don't follow. I always only use the chronological timeline feature, which I believe they were forced to add by the EU. I could be wrong about that, but if anyone knows off the top of your head, please feel free to correct me. Alexi says, Trump is an authoritarian? Yes. Yes, very much so. Yes. Yep. Anyway, so enough of that. Let's move on to job stuff. Again, it's going to be a little bit more US focused, just because that's where mostly my network is, but hopefully also some stuff that'll be useful for folks in other places. So go away. I'm not even logged in Sorry, for those of you who are listening, I opened Twitter. I am not logged in. I have never logged in this browser, and I got a pop-up to turn on notifications, and it said it would get my device, country, and language data. No, I don't want that. Why would you ask me for that? Bad. Henry says, I love your content. Oh, thank you, Henry. Ulf says, Alexi, the rec system, recommendation system, works much better if you have separate accounts for each category, filter, bubble, hobby, or interest. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that as well. If you tend to have too much, diversity in the content you follow, I don't know, you tend to get the things that are just popular across the site as a whole, and those are generally pretty low quality. Facebook. Anyway. So this is from a tweet from Ethan Caballero, Caballero, at ETHANCABALLERO on Twitter, and it's which tech companies don't have a hiring freeze, right, for PhD students. One sec, let me read again. Which AI tech companies don't have hiring freeze for PhD student interns, staff, student researchers right now? So a little bit of background for that, if y'all didn't hear, DeepMind started a hiring freeze on interns during their intern process. I believe DeepMind is one of those companies that has like a seasonal intern process. So this is a news piece from Business Insider by Joy T. Mann, November 7th, 2022. Talking about this talking about this hiring freeze. Deep freeze would be a great hashtag for it, though. Alphabet's DeepMind has put a hiring freeze on new interns, canceling one applicant's interview with just an hour's notice, which stinks. God, that stinks so much, especially since those types of interviews you spend so much time preparing for. They're so stressful. If you were in the sort of like applicant pool for this, I'm sorry. That is absolutely awful. I've also heard some reporting that I believe is incorrect, so I don't want to show you things that I don't think are correct, but a reporter was saying that Google was planning to fire 10,000 people, and my understanding is that this reporter misunderstood the Google performance review cycle. That's the expected number of people to get the lowest 2 rankings. You don't automatically get fired if you get the lowest 2 rankings, unless, failing to improve your ranking was part of an existing performance improvement plan. So I don't think that is correct, but it does seem to be true that they are freezing intern hiring. Yeah. Ulf says apps are cookie monsters. Yep. Tom Wright says, I've been reading about document layout analysis this week. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, a little CV NLP fusion there. I know a lot of you work in legal tech, so I'm sure you know that. But for those of you who don't know, a lot of that work is on legal contracts because they tend to follow like a very specific format and template. Old Player says social media is becoming evil, I think. I mean, we've talked about this before. There's no reason that it has to be a commercial product, right? And it would probably benefit from being treated as a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a utility, right? Or something like the post office, right? The post office is not supposed to turn a profit. The post office is supposed to deliver messages, right? And you can definitely imagine, a scenario in which social media is not supposed to turn a profit. It's supposed to, provide this sort of public forum for talking to folks. Yep. Soren says nonprofit. Yeah, absolutely. Nonprofit would also be another great model. Although nonprofit and public utility are slightly different models of funding, but yes, definitely another way to do social media. Yep. Henry says, do I have a Discord group for my channel? I don't. No. That face was me trying to decide whether I have the wherewithal to moderate a Discord. Maybe. I think I can link it to my coffee. So if folks are interested, I might add one. Yeah. Robbie said, what was the word you said? An authoritarian. Yes. What's my stance on Mastodon? So I use it. I do run my own Mastodon server, which is just me, because I can then do my own moderation, which is, given the sort of general way that things are going right now, that's something that I personally value at the moment. So I mean, like, for me, like I said, social media, a big part of the user experience is who is on it. And it seems like a lot of the machine learning research community in particular has migrated to Mastodon. I know the sigmoid.social Mastodon server seems to be pretty active. The DAIR server seems to be pretty active. You may have to be affiliated with DAIR to get an account there. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't looked into it. But yes, there definitely seems to have been definitely a change in where people mostly are. I tend to get a lot more, discussion going on Mastodon than Twitter right now. Yeah. Hey, Allison. Robbie says, I hope they don't turn off my electricity. Oh, sorry, Mr. Old Player. I hope so too, bud. I'm really sorry you're having electricity issues. That is, I am very familiar with how challenging that can be. Henry says, do you have any advice on how to build search engines to match documents and Henry says, what's Mastodon? Mastodon. Here, let me get you all my Mastodon link real quick. I use a language variety which is R-ful, which is to say that it has R's in it. So for those of you who do not have a language variety which has all the R's, so like a lot of British English is arhotic, right? Like near instead of near, whereas I would say that final R, a British person may not. Do I have a list of interesting people on Mastodon? It's very hard to find new people there. I mean, you can look at who I follow. I don't know if you're going to be interested in all of them, right? Like I follow like a local weather account for Richmond, which may or may not be something you're interested in, but it might be a good starting place if you tend to enjoy my content. Which social media should I use to follow? I mean, I'm going to keep using Twitter until I can't anymore, and that is RCTATMAN. I'm going to keep up with Mastodon, and of course, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yeah. And Alexi's offering some advice for Henry on building search engines to maximize documents. There's not a lot of content on NLP model deployment. Oh, yes, you want it to be fast. I mean, if you are treating it as a bunch of pairwise comparisons, then yes, it's going to be very hard to optimize. Usually it's treated as a ranking problem instead, which I think might help you there. Yeah. Some other references. Ulf says DataSketch PyPI or PyPy package has min-hash /LSH. And then other recommendations. Alexi says FAISS to build a KNN index from the embedding. So yeah. Anyway, so all of that was me going to the one side from talking about this intern hiring freeze, and there were, I thought this thread might be helpful for folks because it's a list of people talking about places that they know about that are currently hiring research students. It's some folks. So this here is the paper that I mentioned that I do not believe is factual, having fact-checked it independently. I'm not a reporter, but yes, looks like Comcast is hiring, Absci has openings, Duolingo has openings. Duolingo has had a great couple quarters, so I think that they are probably going to have still be hiring. Let me put it that way. So I'll post the link to this tweet if any of you are interested in checking it out. There may be some helpful resources there if you are looking for research positions, which I know some of you are. A Twitter link. Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me to my Twitter handle. There you go. And folks are still given good recommendations. All right. Also, so I mentioned, not Instagram. I mean, Meta did a big layoff. Twitter did a big layoff. Social media companies in particular don't seem to be doing super well right now. we'll talk about in just a second another sort of vertical that's not doing super well. But this is from June, so I'm not entirely sure if this is still relevant, but the recruiters were suggesting, at least in June, that a lot of the hiring slowdown seemed to be in specific verticals, and that other verticals, they still had pretty strong hiring. And unfortunately, from everything that I'm learning and hearing about, it seems like language technology is one of the verticals where they are shedding a lot of folks, which means there's going to be a lot more competition as well, which is not a great situation for folks, unfortunately, but good to know about. Another language tech vertical that's not doing super well right now is voice assistants. So this is from November 19th. It's a Business Insider piece by Eugene Kim. Amazon is gutting its voice assistant, Alexa. Employees describe a division in crisis and huge losses on a wasted opportunity. Oh, I was reading that right. So a lot of the Amazon folks have been fired, it sounds like. Definitely not going to be hiring into Alexa folks specifically. If you're not familiar, Alexa's the voice assistant from Amazon. I assume if you're watching this channel, you've heard of Alexa. That seems like good shared knowledge to assume. Yes, so if you were hoping to work for the Alexa team, maybe readjust your expectations. Tom says, are people doing interesting stuff at Duolingo? I hate spaced repetition. I like language learning, though. Good question. They do a lot of research. They actually spend, as a company, quite a bit on R&D. They publish quite a bit at ACL conferences as well, mostly in the sort of language learning space. And I know they do a lot of sort of experimentation and, data science around user retention. I mean, if you're interested in language learning, I think it's a cool company to work for. I'm trying to remember if they were on my tier list or not for ML companies I'd be willing to work for. I guess I would. I'm not really a big, language pedagogy person, so I don't know that I would be the most helpful. And also, I don't think they have any developer-facing tools, so I don't know they'd be hiring for developer advocate, which would be the job title I'd be most likely to go for. But if you're interested, it seems to be okay, is sort of my general impression. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you found the tips helpful, Henry. And Wolf says, I only know HUI Google. I'm gonna try not. Oh, I just realized I just said the name of the assistant a lot of times. I'm sorry if I said anybody's off. It's hard to remember. Also, this job posting, which I just thought I would share because it's a little bit weird. So this is a job posting, hiring tech lead to solve a major archaeological puzzle. It's a 3 to 6 month period. Pay range is 120 to 250K a year. Think of it as an adventurous interlude between your more lucrative commercial gigs. I guess if it's 3 to 6 months, you're not going to be getting all of that. Ideal candidate would have experience in creating, maintaining, and contributing to open source software projects. A background in working with custom software and data pipelines is desirable. Comfort with PyTorch, C++, and OpenCV is a big plus. Yes. So it sounds like a little bit of a research software engineering position. They are very cagey. Specifically, this is Nat Friedman, who is hiring for this position. If I had to guess, I'll post the link in the chat as well, in case any of you are like, that sounds like me. If I had to guess, this smells like another Voynich manuscript thing. If you're not familiar, the Voynich manuscript is a manuscript that's not written in a known language / text, and a lot of people have spent a lot of time trying to decode it because people like puzzles, as it turns out. And particularly people who are interested in linguistics to begin with really like puzzles. If you're interested in a more practical example of a similar puzzle, the coding of the Mayan writing system is just a really fascinating story if you're interested in writing systems, and I would recommend learning more about it. Also, I just think that, in general, Mesoamerican and South American, indigenous cultures just don't get as much discussion in my general social milieu as I think they deserve. So that's also, indigenous North American as well. Anyway, Robbie says, Business Insider needs subscription, I think, to see the news. Very possibly. I have some plugins. Do with that information what you will. All right. Henry says, what's on your company list doing language modeling stuff? Yeah, good question. So Hugging Face is perhaps still doing a big hiring push. They do some language modeling stuff. They also do some non-language modeling stuff. I mean, if you are particularly risk adverse, I personally would not be putting a lot of my eggs in the basket of working for a company where language modeling is their main product offering, for a couple of reasons. One, depending on how the Copilot court case goes, question mark to what degree this remains a, legally viable way to make and run models in the future. And also there's a lot of interest right now. There's a lot of funding right now. My court sort of, and I'm guessing about the future here. I don't know any of this for sure. This is just my take on the vibes, is that I think a lot of companies have overextended on headcount. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they're all doing great, and it's not actually an issue, and it's not going to become an issue. But again, if you are particularly risk averse, I might just sort of stay out of the space for a little bit. Speaking of the space, Galactica. Yep. So for those of you who are listening, I have searched Galactica on Ecosia. Oh, also, just sort of an interesting product feature. So when I searched Twitter on Ecosia, ECOSIA, it's the search engine I use, they have a little grade for how well, quote, the company response to the climate crisis has been weak. So on an A, B, C, D, F scale, they are a D on the scale, and it popped up when I searched them, which I thought was just interesting. Ecosia is ecologically focused search engine that is focused on, they have very good privacy, which is why I use them, but they're also focused on helping to address the climate crisis. Anyway, Galactica. Yeah. Tom says, I've been using Copilot this week. It's very good. I would just be cautious, right? That's my professional recommendation. Yeah. Ulf says, Copilot is a Stack Overflow killer. I signed up for it and copy much less code from Stack Overflow. I'm sure you include roughly as much code from Stack Overflow. It's just been filtered through GitHub first. Yeah. Tom says, I need to look up the new methods it finds for me. I would strongly recommend that. Yes, if it is introducing a method that you are not sure about, I would, yes, absolutely 100% read the documentation on that method. And also check for any potential security updates. Anyway, Galactica. So if you're not familiar, this is this language model that Meta put out and then had to take down because they were misrepresenting its abilities, and a bunch of people were like, hey, you're misrepresenting its abilities. And then certain people on Twitter threw little hissy fits, and that's their prerogative. So the top three search results here are the 1980 TV series, and then one that's about Galactica that's just talking about the model architecture, and then the third one, the little snippet says, Galactica takes this bias with certainty, combines it with the wrong answers, and delivers responses with supreme overconfidence. Hardly a recipe for trustworthiness in a scientific information service. Henry says, Stack Overflow helped through my degree. Don't go. I'm sure it's not going anywhere. Yeah. Henry says, people on GitHub copied Stack Overflow. Yes. Other discussions. Okay, folks are still talking about options for the document match project. So this first piece is from MIT Technology Review. It's by Will Douglas Heaven. Probably Heaven. It's just like the English word heaven. Could be heaven. I don't know. November 18th, 2022. Galactica was supposed to help scientists. Instead, it mindlessly spat out biased and incorrect nonsense, right? And I think the issue here is that y'all all know about large language models, right? I assume most of you know and understand that they are not grounded. In that anyone can lie on the internet, that that language data has been folded into these models, and also the relationship between the language and things that exist is in no way created or enforced besides just sort of like statistical correlation, right? So a great example of where not to use language models that I like to bring up is if you are creating a chatbot and someone is trying to use it to order something online. Well, chatbots will often say things like, your order was placed successfully, or sorry, we're out of this, would you like the substitution, right? So those are turns it may generate. When it generates that turn, it does not mean that the order was actually placed successfully, right? There's no relationship between anything else and the language model output that you do not intentionally place in by hand. And at that point, you might as well just build a rule-based system. So that's my sort of general background on that. This particular language model was no different. But it was sold as if it were a knowledge base. So knowledge bases, well, sold, it was put online for free. So knowledge bases are generally graph representations of relationships between entities or items or processes and their relationship to each other, right? And relevant information for whatever particular thing you are doing. So a potential example of use of a knowledge base might be if you are let's say you're doing document discovery and you're trying to figure out, okay, I want, earnings reports from petrochemical companies. So you need to know which companies are petrochemical companies, and you also need to know which ones would release earning reports. So you need to know, what are the publicly owned petrochemical companies, and then, use that information. Whereas getting a, slightly wrong information there would make your task impossible. Yeah. Or Robbie says, or without payment, the order is placed. Matt says, what browser do you use? So this browser that you're currently looking at is Edge, which I only use for showing stuff on stream. Mostly I use Firefox for my day-to-day browsing. Yep. Tom says, peer-reviewed. No one can lie in peer-reviewed papers. I mean, they can't, but the idea is that if you do, your peers will be like, hey, that doesn't add up, right? And it's not a perfect system, sure, but it is certainly more robust than just doing something and telling people that you did it. So, Tom says, case law. Oh yeah, great example of, a place where you would want to use a knowledge system, right? Like, I need to know, all of the cases related to a specific misdemeanor or something. Ulf says, corporate AI research should stop their over-promising clickbait announcements. Yes, 110%. It's harming the field as a whole. And when people are called out on it, again, they do not react with the grace and accountability that I would expect of someone who's senior in the field. I am absolutely sub-talking about someone here. Anyway, so it was taken down because people were like, hey, the thing that you are saying that this model can do, it absolutely cannot do, right? So, I mean, kind of thankfully, I guess, folks knew that this was an issue, folks called it out, and so a lot of the press coverage about this model is about how they straight up lied about its capabilities. So a snippet here from the article, Meta's misstep and its hubris, like the fatal flaw of pride, show once again that big tech has a blind spot around the severe limitations of large language models. There is a large body of research that highlights the flaws of this technology, including its tendencies to reproduce prejudice and assert falsehoods as fact, which is, particularly this last thing, there is nothing to stop a large language model from doing this. Assuming that it won't do this is weird. Like, they haven't been trained to produce factual information. They've been trained to reproduce, the statistical properties of the tokens that they're trained on, right? It would work exactly the same way for genes. It would work exactly the same way for any sort of sequenced information. However, Meta and other companies working on its large language models, including Google have failed to take it seriously. Anyway, so basically it was this large language model. It was trained on 48 million examples of scientific articles, websites, textbooks, lecture notes, and encyclopedias. I went through and I looked at, actually during the last coffee chat, for those of you who were there, we talked about the training data for this, and it severely over-indexes computer science. Not a lot of social science in there, not a lot of like literature or history. Yes, in the company's words, Galactica can, quote, summarize academic papers, solve math problems, generate wiki articles, write scientific code, annotate molecules and proteins, and more. Which, like, it can produce output that looks like that, sure, but it's not grounded, it's not fact-check, and there's no guarantee that it's going to be correct. Yeah. And anyway, a lot of quotes from various people on Twitter who are practitioners in the field being like, what? Quote from Chirag, C-H-I-R-I-G, Chirag, Shah at the University of Washington, who studies search technologies. I'm both astounded and unsurprised by this new effort. When it comes to demoing these things, they look so fantastic, magical, and intelligent, but people still don't seem to grasp that in principle, such things can't work the way we hype them up to. Yep. As for a statement on why it had removed the demo, Meta pointed MIT Technology Review to a tweet that said, "Thank you everyone for trying the Galactica model demo. We appreciate the feedback we've received so far from the community and have paused the demo for now. Our models are available for researchers who want to learn more about the work and reproduce the results in the paper." Yep. And I think the crux of the problem is called out really well here. A fundamental problem with Galactica is that it is not able to distinguish truth from falsehood, a basic requirement for a language model designed to generate scientific text, right? So I'm not saying it couldn't be helpful. I'm not saying it couldn't have its place in an NLP tooling chain, but to present it as a finished product capable of doing all the things that they said that it was capable of doing is disingenuous at best and outright deceptive at worst. But yep. And just a lot more examples of people being like, hey, this is bad. You should stop doing this. Another story from Motherboard. Facebook polls its new, quote, AI for science because it's broken and terrible. The demo of Galactica generated fake research and filtered out searches for racism and AIDS. And this is by Janice Rose and was published November 18th, 2022. So I think this really calls out the second part of the problem, which is, first of all, they were, misrepresenting the capabilities of the model. And also there were some, choices made during the design, and my guess is that there is a block list of words that they used that as a result made the model just unable to integrate with certain topics, right? Which I don't think is a bad idea, but people definitely were able to generate content supporting white supremacy without using like, hey, write me a pro-racism article. But it is very difficult to generate content, which again, I don't think that the generating the content in the first place is particularly that useful. But like I mentioned, this could be a step in a larger pipeline. So if racism is your scientific object of inquiry, this tool would not be helpful, and other tools based on it would also not be helpful. I mean, assuming that's what they're going to do, because this sounded expensive to train, right? Like this was an investment from the company that they positioned horribly. I don't know what else to say. Like that's what it was. But there were also some design decisions made that I think were not really thought through. I think a lot of things about this project, outside of the technical, how they built the model, were not really thought through. Or they were, and they just decided that they were okay with the issues. Yeah. Oh. Matt said, I somehow guessed you use Firefox after seeing you use Ecosia. I just use Chromium for sanity tests. Yeah, sometimes I will use Chromium for some stuff. Firefox is also my main browser. Yeah, Firefox Club. I don't have anything with Firefox on it, but yeah. Actually, Chelsea Troy, who we had talked with on my YouTube channel last week, I uploaded on Thanksgiving, is a engineer at Mozilla and has worked on Firefox previously. Yeah. Okay, and I missed a bunch of stuff, so let me see here. Tom says, spilling the tea while drinking the tea. Yes, this is coffee, but I am also a tea drinker. I like both. Alexi says, talking about knowledge bases, it was a very cool paper, Poincaré, Poincare accent coup, embeddings for learning hierarchical representations. What do you think of using non-Euclidean spaces for embedding tasks? Ooh. Interesting. I don't see why not. Sorry, I was just staring off into the distance thinking about Matt there for a second. Riveting viewing. Yeah. I mean, I think the challenge there might be picking the most useful non-Euclidean space for the specific underlying data structure you have. And I don't know that you're going to necessarily know what that structure is until you train embeddings in the first place. I don't know. It might be a little bit more robust with some things that aren't language, because there's a lot of variability in language. Interesting. That's cool. Tom says, I still want to use Galactica to find papers while editing Wikipedia. Oh, like as part of a search engine? I would recommend Semantic Scholar if you're looking for like a scholarly search engine. Matt says, Mozilla, send some merch, please. I mean, I wouldn't say no. I am a Mozilla fan in general, right? Understanding that, of course, all institutions are flawed and can change. Henry says, how can people build reliable question and answer systems using language models? I.e., I want to build a bot trained on government grants to answer grant eligibility questions. I would not use a large language model for that, right? That's just how it is. I mean, I think the places where large language models can be useful is to generate bespoke training data for specific projects where you don't have the training data you need, as sort of a warm start. I did a video for Cohere on their YouTube channel about that, and some examples for chatbots. But yeah. Something we'll talk about a little bit later today is somebody ran a poll on Mastodon asking people in the machine learning NLP space who had used a GPT-3-like model for work. And I think 80% of people were like, I've never done it. I've never had to, which sort of is the same with my experiences, right? Like most tasks, you just don't need one. Also, they're big, they're slow, and they're expensive, which 3 things you love to bring to your supervisor during, your design doc is like, let's use this big, slow, expensive thing that also is going to generate, factually incorrect output. Generally kind of a hard sell. Yeah. Tom says, people are talking about bringing up third-party hosting. Might give it a whirl if they do with wiki user scripts. Or just like for Galactica? Yeah, maybe. Tom says, I suspect the content filtering is a different model rather than the one they use. That wouldn't surprise me. I was playing with GPT-3 through Azure and it got filtered, whereas OpenAI was not getting filtered. That also does not surprise me. I imagine Microsoft has a lot more lawyers than OpenAI does. Tom says, all publicity is good publicity. 4D chess for the win. See? That's not true, right? And it's not true for several reasons. And one of the reasons is that technology, specifically machine learning right now, we are in a moment of growing momentum, both in terms of case law and also, legislation, prohibiting certain uses of machine learning and, restricting what's capable, what are possible using these models. And every time a big company releases something expensive that misleads users, it erodes that little bit of public trust. That's a non-renewable resource. We do not get public trust back. it erodes, it erodes, it erodes, it erodes, it erodes. And when the legislation comes up, everyone's going to call their Congress people and be like, hey, you know, put down the biggest, you know, most restrictive possible legislation on these tech companies. They can't be trusted. Here's how we know. Time they couldn't be trusted 1, time they couldn't be trusted 2, time they couldn't be trusted 3. I don't think they'd be wrong to say that, right? Every time we release a large scale system publicly that has clear harms and people just sort of like wave away those harms, it hurts our field as a whole. And people keep doing it. People keep doing it. And I don't know what to say. Like, we are all free agents who, you know, can act in this world as we see most fitting, but those actions have consequences. Yeah. Yeah. Robbie says Brave is great. I'm not familiar with Brave. Henry says, why Firefox? As I mentioned sometimes, I am a certified paranoid weirdo, TM. And in terms of user privacy, I think Firefox is the best. I use a lot of plugins, a lot of plugins to sort of reduce the amount of, you know, particularly data harvesting that is done for me particularly, and to sort of just reduce my general threat vectors. I don't think everyone needs to do that, but I do. Yeah. Ulf says, I told lexicographers, dictionary folks, that in a software demo, that 99% correct scoring model will show you 10,000 rubbish examples with this search corpus with 1 million examples, and domain experts only care about that 1%. Yeah, particularly for lexicography, you need correct answers, because if you don't, and you cite an incorrect source in your, it gives me hives just thinking about it, right? It turns out that in a lot of professions, people actually care about precision. It's weird. Hiya, Chrono Zero. Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, Mozilla's, it's the new Firefox version. I haven't updated yet. Thank you for the context. I thought you might be talking about the animated movie. Yeah. Tree structures like a hyperbolic space look like a natural choice. Yeah, but sometimes you get covariance across categories, and you might want to maintain that representation, right? Whereas the tree structure would split them apart. I guess, you know, going down the tree, you get that sort of hierarchical representation, but it could be that, like, you know, node C from branch 1 is very closely related to node B on branch 2, but looking at the tree structure, they are no longer super related, right? Because it's not like it's not just a one-dimensional relationship, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'd have to learn more about it. Yeah. Yeah. Tom says, tragedy of the reputation commons. Indeed. And it does tend to be people who are looking to gain specifically financial profit, who are looking specifically to profit from the space that tend to do this. Yeah. Can I post the talk I gave for Cohere? Oh yeah, sure. It's on their YouTube channel. Let me grab it real quick. Brave has a very controversial CEO. That's what kept me away from that. Wait. So this isn't like the latest like version of Firefox. This is a different company? Okay, I may need to look into this more and form my opinion, not live, because I do. Oh. There is another company called Cohere, which is not the one that I was looking for. Let's see if we can find it. Here we go. Here you go. This is the video I did for Cohere. Yes. Am I at Cohere now? No, that was just contract work. I am independent. Technically, I'm at my LLC, making noise and hearing things. All right. Also, if you wanted sort of a different perspective on this, so AI Weirdness is Janelle's blog. Oh, Janelle Shane. Oh, okay. We're just not seeing the little Twitter render. She is fantastic, very creative, very clever. I'm sure you've seen some of her cool like art projects she's done, but she just has a really good discussion of it and some of the specific issues from someone else in the space. And I should say, I have never really been mainly focused on generative stuff. Janelle's been working with generative stuff for like a decade, so she really knows her stuff. And if you don't want to listen to me, listen to her. Also buy her book. It's fun. Great Christmas present if you want to like sort of jokes. If you celebrate Christmas or other winter holidays. All right, and just another piece from IT technology review. Sorry, I took the last mora from both of those words and put them together. That's a weird speech error. Technology. No, okay. Review. Yeah, I took the last two moras from both of the last syllable from both of those words and squished them together. That is a wild speech error for an English speaker to make. Anyway, sorry. Moras are units of metrical weight. We don't really talk about or use them in English. They're very important in things like Japanese. So when people talk about haikus being the number of syllables, they are wrong. They are the number of moras, but I don't correct them usually because I just like to let people have their fun. But I'm telling y'all so that you know. Yeah. Henry says, this channel is amazing. Well, thank you. When's the next coffee chat? So I just changed my schedule. On Tuesday, we talk about research papers. So we go a little bit more in depth onto fewer things. And on Thursdays, we talk about news. So, yeah. Oh, interesting. So some background from Mast. Brave is a different browser built by Brendan Ike, created JavaScript and co-founded Mozilla. He resigned from Mozilla after some homophonic, I'm assuming that's homophobic, statements. Noted. And like, people are, perfectly capable of changing, and hopefully this person has changed and, had some personal growth is my hope, but good to know. Thank you for sharing. And I haven't verified that, so hopefully Mast isn't lying to me. All right, next up, deepfakes. So one thing that kept coming up over and over in the conversation with the Galactica model was a bunch of people being like, well, AI ethics people talk about how people are going to be hurt by deepfakes, and nobody I know has been hurt by deepfakes, so they were wrong. And I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit about some of the people hurt by deepfakes. So this is from a little bit ago. It's March 3rd, 2021. It's from the Center for International Government Innovation, published by written by Susie Dunn, sorry. And the title is, it just says it all, Women, Not Politicians, Are Targeted Most Often by Deep Fake Videos. So of the people who have been harmed by deepfakes, most of them have been women who are individual citizens who are being targeted for harassment by other individuals, and not mostly politicians, although there have definitely been instances of politicians, of deepfakes of politicians being used as part of, attempts to foment political unrest and deceive people. So, yeah, I'm not going to go too much into it. If you're interested in learning more, this is a good resource. There's a lot of resources about this, and actually, it is enough of a problem that the state in the United States that I live in, Virginia, actually made generated images part of their, included it in their legislation, making revenge porn illegal. So in the state of Virginia, generated images are included in images that are, illegal to distribute without the person's consent. That is not true in every state of the US, but it isn't true where I am. So good job, Virginia. One good tech policy. That's not fair. Virginia has some good tech policies and some tech policies. Yeah. Alexi says, I think using non-Euclidean spaces and non-trivial topologies is quite low-hanging fruit in ML. I want to pursue it when I'll be able to have more time for research. I guess my big questions are, A, how capable is it going to be to represent the various different types of data distributions your model is going to see? And 2, will it increase the cost of gradient descent significantly? Like, I don't know. Question mark. That's just a question that I want to know. Yeah. All right, more people talking about non-Euclidean spaces. All right, and then a more recent example of someone using deepfakes to defraud people. So if you weren't familiar with this whole thing, there's this big crypto company which has just gone down in flames, lost all their money. A bunch of people have, like, individuals who invested in them have suffered as a result. I am no fan of crypto. I am very sorry that people were hurt. I'm not especially upset this company is not going to be around, but and I believe Sam Bankman-Fried, usually referred to as SBM, I think. It's a space I try to avoid as much as possible, and unfortunately it keeps happening to me. But this was published November 21st, 2022 by Matthew Gault on Motherboard, Tech by Vice. And this deepfake of this person was used to trick people into entering this fake Twitter giveaway. And it was, compounded by the fact that this happened during the point where Twitter was letting anyone buy verified status. So it looked like it was the verified account. I believe that's paused. I think they were going to unpause it like yesterday. I don't know. Something. Anyway, and it was used to defraud people, and this deepfake was part of that process. So, yeah. Interesting. Alexi says, okay, they're just folks are talking about that. Ulf says, fiction isn't Galactica's strength. I guess it doesn't invent too. Well, I mean, Galactica was specifically trained on scientific literature, so it's going to generate stuff that looks like scientific literature. It is not going to generate stuff that looks like fiction, right? It's exploiting the fact that language is not random to produce other things that are not random, but just because they're not random does not mean that they are factual. And I do want to, talk about some other potential uses of this technology. I am not a fan of deepfakes. I'm not a fan of facial recognition in general. I think that those sort of class of computer vision techniques have a lot of capacity for harm, but I did also recently come across some of these other examples, which I think are interesting. I don't know that they outweigh the bad for me, but good to talk about. So this is from New Scientist by Alex Wilkins, published November 18th, 2022. And it's talking about a paper product. This one I'd have to subscribe to keep reading, but basically the idea is that it uses deepfakes to replace faces in photos to preserve the privacy of the people in those photos, right? So here we have a little example for those of you who are listening. It's 6 people at a party, and when you look at each of the views from people who were at the party, you see that some of the faces have been replaced by similar looking deepfakes and some of them haven't. And someone who was not there looking at these photos would see places that were replaced completely by deepfakes. Although I will say, just for me as a person, I can tell that these are the same people. Maybe this person D here, whose eye color and bone structure have been slightly changed, looks like a different person, but at least for me, that these two people look the same. I also, just as a person, know about myself that I tend to mostly use people's hair as like a visual identifier. So perhaps if the hair were changed, I would be more likely to recognize these as different people. So I don't know how well it works. It's kind of an interesting idea. I can see it as potentially a way to prevent data from being scraped and used for facial recognition or to add additional noise. So that could potentially be an interesting use here for intentional data poisoning for privacy purposes. That's something else we talked about with Chelsea Troy. If you haven't seen that interview, you should go watch that interview. It was fun. Also, I did the captions by hand, so please turn the captions on. And then another sort of interesting artistic use of deepfakes, something that I've talked about quite a bit on the channel, is that I don't think the generative stuff is bad. I think that it's mostly useful in an artistic setting. When it is used by and with the consent of the artists whose work is used to train the model in the first place. So this is a story from Wired by Amos, probably Amos, Barshad, Barshad, published November 27th, 2022. European dates, my true adversary. This singer deepfaked her own voice and thinks you should too. So basically it's a story talking about Holly Herndon, who is a singer who has created a voice clone of herself and is basically using it as an instrument, sort of similar to how, what's the term for, one sec. I'm gonna look up this term because if I get it wrong, I will feel silly. Yes. Okay. So if you're familiar with sort of like the general idea of chopped and screwed, it's a music genre and an editing technique where you sort of play with manipulation of the sound signal as a way of introducing aural, A-U-R-A-L, aural interest to the sound signal. So if you're familiar with T-Pain, who is a singer rapper who uses auto-tune to artistic effect in that genre. So sort of similar, but instead of doing her actual voice, it sounds like she's using a deepfake clone of her voice, again, in this sort of like experimental, instrumental way. And I just got my Spotify Wrapped, so I can tell you, electronica is not one of my top genres, but I do enjoy electronica, so I think it's a cool idea. Again, I think when these technologies are used in a way that gives artists, independence and autonomy and sovereignty over their data, perfectly fine. So, yeah. Bustine says, this happened after the FTX drama with this deepfake thing. Yes, even if it was him, it was super untrustworthy. I mean, yes. Like I mentioned, I am not a fan of crypto. I think it's always been a Ponzi scheme, but I understand not everyone agrees with me. Yeah. All right. That is a great question. Henry says, how do we copyright the generative stuff if we use TensorFlow to create the arts? Copyleft or copyright? Copyleft being another copyright audience. So the general consensus at the moment, and I may be wrong about this, is that you cannot copyright generated work. Works which include generated works as part of them, at least one has been granted copyright in the United States. It is an open question. Talk to a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. Yep. All right. Folks still talking about space shapes. TM. Ulf says, GAN, art, generative adversarial networks, is like modern art that only focused on the newness of a technique. It wears off quickly, some years, because the most important feature of art is a contemporary social technique. Critique. Yeah. I mean, I think aesthetic appreciation can also be, art can exist without critique, but with aesthetic appreciation, sometimes shapes just look nice together and people like that. But yes, I personally am not a huge fan of generated art. in no small part because what I find the most appealing, visually appealing in art is I tend to like very bold line work, and I really like illustrative styles. And these systems are very bad at those because computer vision systems don't handle silhouettes well, which is weird. I mean, it's not weird. It's just a, the factor of the way that they're trained. But as humans, we have a strong perceptual bias towards silhouettes, a very strong perceptual bias towards silhouettes. And I don't like that that's not reflected in the produced art. And then finally, I think that this title is a little bit sensational. This is from MIT Technology Review. It is from May of this year, by Will Douglas Heaven. Again, Heaven is probably heaven, right? The dark secret behind those cute AI generated animal images. And basically it's just talking about what was current at that point, different image generative technology. But the point that he was making here was basically, hey, the big tech companies are very much maintaining control of these systems. They're not releasing them for general use without a lot of safety features included in them. It has mostly been smaller, newer companies that have released systems without those safety features. Stable being the clear example here. And it's weird. It's like the more lawyers a company has, the less willing they are to just put these models out there for anybody to use. And perhaps that's a spurious correlation, but perhaps not. All right. Robbie says, you guys are very mathy. Yes, I'm just sort of like letting the conversation happen. Yeah. All right. Next up, we have a whole section of just like general miscellaneous professional stuff. So let's get right into it. First off, there's this again is from May of last year, 2021, but I think is a great point and well worth keeping in mind. And something that I, reference a lot. So I thought I'd bring it up again. So this is from MIT Technology Review by Karen Hao, the AI Karen Hao, not the Chinese tech policy Karen Hao. There are two tech reporters by that name. They have different beats. We need to design distrust into AI systems to make them safer. Ayanna Howard, an acclaimed roboticist and educator, says our excessive faith in automated systems can lead us into dangerous situations. And I'll pop the link in the chat for those of you who want this. And I believe this is Ayanna Howard here in the picture. For those of you who are listening, she is a Black woman with, I think those are micro dreads, wearing a purple pantsuit, standing on a university campus and smiling at the camera. Yes, so it talks about sort of her career and then her general recommendation. And what we've talked about quite a bit on the channel is automation bias, right? So the propensity of people to, once an automated system is in place, over-rely on the output of the automated system to potential detriment of everything, right? So her recommendation, right, is to make it clear that you can't trust systems, and to make it easier in the design of the project to allow people to act on that distrust, basically. So that's the general idea. It's a way of, helping to address the dangers of automation bias. And I mean, I don't work in robotics. I'm not a roboticist. I never have been, but a very interesting and useful research program is the word I was looking for. So I know I talk about myself as a paranoid weirdo a lot, but I think, particularly with automated systems, a certain amount of paranoia is healthy. Don't trust as your default. Yeah. Hey, Mr. Old Player. Oh, hopefully you didn't lose electricity. Fingers crossed for you. There it is again. This is the Hey, if anybody watching is still at Twitter and you were involved in the product decision to do this, I hate it. Not that you care, but it's awful. And for those of you watching, when you open a Twitter tab not logged in, you now get the option to turn on notifications. I never want to turn on browser notifications. I have literally never in my life as a user turned on browser notifications. I won't even install the Slack desktop app because I don't want to see the notifications. It gives control over my time and attention to you, and I don't want to do that. I want to control my time and attention. Anyway, I hate it. I hate it so much. It is so... It reduces the autonomy of users. Please don't do it. Anyway, so this is a tweet from Jack Stilgeo, Stilgoe, who is a professor at UCL, I think, University College of London. Yes, the UCL Department of Science and Technology Studies. Talking about a situation where, let me see, get that out of the way. Talking about a situation where, quote, a paper we submitted got rejected by a journal after an automated plagiarism detection. It turned out 2 students in India had plagiarized our preprint and then published online reports. So we've been accused of copying them. Fun. Which is wild, right? Wild. I don't know what to say to that, except that I think that perhaps their online, automated plagiarism detection system is deeply broken, right? Particularly, I'm guessing that it does not look specifically at the preprint servers like Archive, right? But it is indexing other things that have been published, so published online reports. So it must be based on some sort of like web crawled data, and it was finding the overlap there. And the overlap was right? It was correct. Plagiarism did occur. It just occurred in the opposite direction. So I think this is a great example of, right, we just talked about you can't just put your faith in automated systems, right? This is a system working as intended. Yes, there was plagiarism, correct. However, by trusting the automated decision that, these authors are the ones who did the plagiarism, you resulted in an inaccurate and harmful judgment that has, hurt potentially the careers of these people. So, yeah. Okay, Tor says, Mr. Roleplayer says, Tor browser. Yeah. Mindshell says, it's good that students are publishing science, though. I don't think it's good that students are just straight up plagiarizing work. Yeah? So... I mean, this is something that I think about a lot, right? Because I teach at universities, right? I'm teaching at the University of Washington, the University of Michigan at the graduate level, in both of them actually on professional master's programs. So I'm not working with students who are intending to go on and have an academic career, but I have in the past, and I have been myself a student who intended to go on and have an academic career. And if you are interested in doing research professionally, whether that's at a university or in another setting, certainly in the United States and Europe, academic plagiarism is extremely serious and can result in you getting fired. So you need to know what it is and how not to do it. And misrepresenting someone else's work as your own is a form of academic plagiarism. Copying large segments of somebody else's work without proper attribution is a form of academic plagiarism. And unfortunately, I think it's super common, particularly since, anyone can upload a paper to Archive that may have, any amount of overlap with other papers. So we talked last week, I think, week before last, must have been week before last, about the tortured words study, or tortured phrases, I think they were called, which is where people were taking existing academic papers, running them through a program designed to select near synonyms, to, make it seem like it wasn't plagiarized, and then re-uploading it as original research. I think there was actually a YouTuber, a machine learning YouTuber, who was involved in this a little while ago, who some of you may be familiar with. who did the same thing, right? Took an existing academic paper, changed some words to near synonyms, misrepresented it as his own work, was roundly... My organic doorbell. Sorry, my dog, someone came to the door. Misrepresented his own work, and as a result had major professional consequences. So yeah, don't do this. Listen, this is me as your auntie being like, don't do it. The potential benefits are like, oh, people are like, oh, you kind of got a paper, that's cool. The potential downsides are that you lose your job, you become a pariah in the field. Don't do it. Razzie says the dog agrees. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Mindshell says, science by any means is my motto. No, absolutely not. No, when that has been pursued in the past, it has resulted in some of the worst things that have ever been done to human beings. Bad motto. Please reconsider. I hope that you are being facetious. Matt says, I thought they scared students of that in all universities. I guess not. I mean, I certainly attempt to impart to my students how important it is not to do this, but sometimes they do. Yeah. Alexi says, woof. Yes, indeed. Speaking of archive and preprints and uploading stuff, so this is from November 17th. And if you notice that some of these links are more than a month old, I mean, it's a week old, some of them are intentional, but also we skipped last week. So these will be from the 17th to today, plus other stuff that I thought was relevant that was a little bit older. And this is just an FYI, there are now Hugging Face integration. There is a Hugging Face integration with Archive. So Hugging Face Spaces is integrated with Archive through a demo tab that includes links to demos created by the community or authors themselves. By going to the demo tab of your favorite paper, you can find links to open source demos and try them out immediately. Which I have to say, this is a smart product decision from the Hugging Face folks. Like, props. Y'all did a good thing. I think this is gonna, like, of the product changes they've made recently, I think this is the most likely to, really cement them as a feature even more than they were in the machine learning landscape. So, like, in terms of business decisions, nice. In terms of just, like, quality of life for machine learning researchers or people who read machine learning researcher, also nice. So might be very useful. I haven't used it out. I haven't used it recently. I haven't seen any papers recently with systems I wanted to play with, but yeah, cool. Good to know of. Yeah. Henry says, question, what would I recommend to a professional who graduated years ago to get academic recommendation letters for grad school? That is tricky. I mean, if you've worked in a position where you've worked with researchers, even if they themselves are not academics, if they have a PhD, they might be able to write recommendation letters for you. And I say PhD specifically because if they have a research degree, then their words might carry a little bit more weight. It's definitely tricky. Unfortunately, the way that our sort of PhD programs are set up, certainly in the US, it's very not conducive to people coming back from a career. Yeah. Ooh. I guess if you've worked with any researchers, ask them. That would be sort of my best recommendation. That's a challenging place to be in, yeah. All right, so good job, Hugging Face team and Archive team. Also, I mentioned Duolingo a while ago. So this is a product decision that they made a while ago to improve user retention. So this is a Twitter thread from Ali, perhaps? Abouelatta? Abouelatta, PM at Duolingo. And I'm actually just gonna real quickly check what type of check mark that is in another tab. So this is a verified account, but it has been verified because it subscribes to Twitter Blue. So this is not, this verification is purchased and not organic. So the experiment is looking at streak goals. So there's a little screenshot here of the Duolingo app. Pick your streak goal: 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. After a user starts a new streak, we used to show them the screen to pick a streak goal. The kicker is we never stored this information anywhere, nor did we do anything with it. It was a one-time fleeting interaction. But we knew how important setting and completing goals is to build new habits, so we weren't totally surprised when streak goals turned out to be a huge retention win. Weeks after users saw the screen, they were still retaining better than those that didn't. A few years later, we decided to dial it up a notch, which is where things got crazier. Instead of showing the screen when you started the new streak, we removed the pre-selected option and forced every user to select a goal. We added a lot of friction. The streak goal is not something we reference anywhere on the app, nor do we track it. Beyond a user committing to one, we don't do anything with it. Users who select 3 days get the same experience as those who selected 7, 14, and 30. And the results added a ton of friction. And the results from adding a ton of friction, I'm sure that's supposed to say blew our minds. Users selected higher goals than before. Users did not drop off despite the extra friction. Users retained way better for weeks after seeing this screen. This experiment led to a big insight from the retention team: the power of good friction. Good friction is friction we add to the experience that increases users' motivation by getting them to actively assess their end goal. Once they do, it stays with them for a long, long time. Also, they're hiring. This is from November 21st. Which I think is a really interesting product decision. I know we don't talk a whole bunch. We talk some about product stuff on the channel, and I mean, I'm sure some of you are getting to be more senior in your engineering journey, so product stuff is going to be more relevant to you if it isn't already. But a couple things I liked about this: A, they weren't storing any information, right? B, this was done for something which presumably the aims of the company and the user here are aligned, right? When people start to study a foreign language, presumably they want to stick with it and get good at the language. So this is a nudge that helps the users to do that. But also, you know, one that worked for the company. So yeah, I just thought it was a really interesting thread about a product decision. And also, where was I going with this? I don't remember where I was going with it. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting, and some of y'all would be interested since we talked about Duolingo. Yeah. Tom says, publish 3 papers and turn them into a PhD, Wittgenstein style. You could. Good luck. Bye, old player. I hope you survive your outage and have a nice time. Yep. All right. Next up. So speaking of product stuff, this happened to come across, I think my social, I think someone was talking about it. It's codesquire.ai, which was sort of pitched as Colab specifically for data science code. It is a Chrome extension. The pricing is $10 a month for Jupyter, Colab, and BigQuery, or $100 a month for annually. Okay, gotcha. Yes, which I don't know. I've got some feelings about this, right? So, feeling number 1, I don't know that I would choose to use this professionally, again, just for liability reasons. Feeling number 2, I do like that it's specialized. I've talked about this before on the channel. The more narrow the focus of the language technology, the more into it I tend to be. Feeling number 3, I don't really know, like, what sort of, I don't know what sort of safety stuff they're doing behind the scenes. I'm sure they're not going to be super transparent about it to, help to keep it equally safe. turn comments into code, and there's a little example here with Plotly, write functions using well-known libraries. So it is perhaps that they are only allowing functions that come from specific predefined libraries, which is great if they are doing that. Fabulous product feature. Helps to reduce specifically typo squatting, which I think is a pretty big issue with this generated code. Translate language into SQL queries, which are these, are these conditioned on, well, I mean, obviously it's prompting, so it's definitely conditioned to a certain degree on the columns being selected earlier in the prompt, but is there any sort of like AST going on? Is there any sort of other checks going on? I don't know. Question mark. It suggests that it can help you explain code. You can ask a question about a function. It'll generate a comment to explain that. Write complex function by specifying multiple steps. Write code tailored to your code style and use cases. Yeah, so I'd have a lot more questions before choosing to use this. It's a browser extension that's Chrome only, so like obviously I wouldn't use it for that reason, but it also runs in Google Colab, BigQuery, and Jupyter Lab, all of which are services where you pay for something. So that would also potentially be a worry that I'd have, right? If I'm paying for compute and, I generate this 3 nested loops or whatever, and suddenly I'm on the hook for $10,000 worth of GPU time, that might be an issue. Hopefully you've noticed that, right? But like, I don't have a deep enough understanding of like AWS internals to be able to look at 2 queries and be like, this one's going to cost less. Yeah, and they don't have a lot of additional information about it and potential, safety stuff, but they do have best practices and guidelines that you have to sign in to get. So there's a 30-day free trial. I'm not loving that it's a Chrome plugin. I don't know. Like, I think that this could be done in such a way that I'm okay with it. I don't know that this is or is not. They just don't provide enough information. So, caveat, programmer. Yeah. Ulf says Wikidata needs that for their QL docs. Yeah. Oh, bye, Tom. Good to see you. All right, machine learning copilot. Yeah. So I don't know if any of you have used this. I'd be interested in learning more, but I definitely would need a lot more information. Oh wait, I can do this without having an account. Oh no, that just toggles whether I sign up and sign in. Well, that's also like, I don't want to have to log in to see the docs. That's some gross growth hacking, right? Like that product decision makes me kind of leery of your other product decisions, particularly if I'm, if I'm working on stuff online in Chrome and I have to, I'd be a little bit worried about data harvesting maybe. I don't know. Interested but skeptical is where I would put myself there. So, all right. Oh, can I vote in this? I can't. Well, I will just tell you what the results are. So this is what I promised on Mastodon. This is Simon Wilson, Willison, Willison, who is Simon at simonwillison.net. Who asked, how often do you use GPT-3 style AI tools in your daily work? I'm specifically talking about tools that look like GitHub Copilot or GPT-3, so writing assistants for AI text prompt services built on top of large language models. And if I have this open in another tab that unfortunately I can't show you, but I will just read the results. So multiple times per week out of 344 respondents, 10%, at least once a month, 3%, less than once a month, 7%, and then 80% say never, which again, very much coincides with my general understanding. Like, it's not something I've really felt the need for, and also am kind of worried about doing, particularly in a professional context, particularly when it may open me or my employer up for liability in the future. So Ulf says you can disable data sharing when using Copilot. Yes, but what about Code Squire? Yeah, I don't know what their anything is. The information is sparse on the ground. Mindshell says, I've got to love the pre-planned power outage. Yeah. So I'll pop this. There's also a lot of discussion if you're interested in hearing more. And I'll pop the chat in, link in chat if you would like to check it out. Someone asked about following people. I think Simon's a great person to follow. I've followed him from Twitter and enjoy, in general, the tweets. Toots. Posts? They stopped calling them toots now. What are they called now? One sec. Let me just check something in another tab. What are they called? Tell me what they're called. Publish. Published, I guess. Oh. All right. Next up. Ugh, this is kind of grim. So this is actually from July, but we talked about a little bit earlier, maybe I should have moved it, about verticals that are doing quite well. And unfortunately, I think military AI is one of those verticals. So this is from July by Melissa Hekela, who is, I believe, Finnish. She's a reporter. Jiminy Cricket. She's a reporter that whose work we read quite often from MIT Technology Review, and talking about basically how American tech companies and startups are benefiting financially from the invasion of Ukraine. And if you're sort of familiar with, I guess, American politics and economics, you may have heard of the military-industrial complex, which is basically the idea that the US goes to war a lot, and also benefits from a lot of wars, specifically financially. So there's a lot of money that is made due to conflict, and a lot of it flows into the US. Imperialism. Oh. Alexi says, woof woof, yeah. Ulf says toots. I think they changed the name. It doesn't say toot anymore in the, in the thingadoo. So, anyway. Ooh. What if I ask nicely? Well, I will summarize this. So this was a blog post on Medium. I'm pretty sure that's spelled correctly. One sec, let's see if I can find it. So basically there was, I don't know if y'all saw this, but there was a post going around about how fast Julia is. Oh yeah, it looks like it's down. Is the whole blog down? Yes. Is Medium down? No. Fascinating. Anyway, so there was basically some stuff going around about how Julia was like billions of times faster than Python and R, and it was sort of a more in-depth discussion about why that's not entirely accurate, but it no longer exists, so moving on. This is an open source project. So we've talked about Mycroft on the channel before. They are an open sourced, privacy focused voice assistant based in Europe. They have, their own hardware that's, hackable, right to repair, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very fussy. And the Open Voice OS is forked from Mycroft. And somebody reached out to me to let me know that they were looking for perhaps some more maintainers who were interested. So Open Voice OS, multilingual text parsing and formatting library. The project has been forked from Mycroft core and replaces it. So this is basically getting from text input to voice output. So pronouncing numbers, date time objects, durations, parsing to extract numbers, durations, and dates. It goes both ways. I don't know why I said it was just pronouncing. And then steps to contribute. So if you're interested in contributing to an open source ML or voice project, might be pop that in the chat. Might be an interesting project to work on. Looks like they could use some additional help, particularly from folks who have more of a language technology background. And here is the list of current maintainers or contributors. And they have, looks like currently 6. So pretty small project if you're looking, or core contributors, but then also a bunch of other folks. So if you're interested in helping out, might be a good opportunity. And then a bunch of Stable Diffusion stuff. Alexi says, still thank you for getting HIMARS to Ukraine. I don't know what that is. Ulf says, never mention the military-industrial complex. They shut your internet off, you'll see. Perhaps. I suppose one of the benefits of living in the United States is that, in theory, we do have First Amendment protections. Hi, Henry. Have to run. We'll look forward to the next coffee chat. Well, we look forward to seeing you. Thanks for joining. Yeah, Robbie says, go to Julia as a developer advocate post. Are they hiring? Last time I looked into Julia, which admittedly was years ago, the ability to handle text data was pretty bleak, but perhaps it has improved since then. So, yeah. It might be in my cache. CACHE. Yeah, it wouldn't be in this browser though. So, if you're familiar with Jay, who's a supporter of the channel, you may have seen his name in the thank you credits. And is, I believe, at Cohere. I don't know why I said I believe. I know Jay's at Cohere. He did the illustrated Transformer, which I'm sure many of you have seen, and he just released one on Stable Diffusion, and I believe this was right around the release of Stable Diffusion 2. So if you're interested in learning more, here you are. I have to say, I am not particularly. Also sort of in the diffusion verse. So this was updated a while ago, but I just happened to hear about it recently. Dance diffusion is, because it's on Hugging Face now, I think that's why I heard about it. Also from Stable, and it is, or Stable AI, or Stability AI, sorry. And it's a music generation thing. And you may remember that we talked about record companies being like, hey, if you train stuff with our music, we're gonna sue you. And the data that they use to train the model are actually all open source as far as I know, so, or have been licensed appropriately. So it's been trained on recordings of a Canadian goose. It's been trained on clips from this unlocked recordings data set from archive.org. It's been trained on clips provided by glitch.cool. Quote, a collective of producers, sound designers, programmers, and visual artists orbiting the glitch aesthetic, founded in 2019. We are a collectively operated publishing platform releasing sample packs, albums, and educational content. We seek to promote and encourage the development of the burgeoning fields at the intersection of technology and the arts. We also run a large Discord server with an active community of audiovisual creatives and a focus on education, camaraderie, and collaboration. So, yes, data sourced from, I'm assuming, people who are okay with it, which is good, right? Like I said, I think that generative tools can be really, good when they are used in a way that respects artists' autonomy and empowers them, and it sounds like this project has chosen to do that, which is good. What am I expecting from GPT-4? I mean, probably disappointment. If I'm honest. Robbie says, I'm saying Julia community manager. He posted on Twitter about 34 time billion faster than Python. Yeah, I think it was, yes. It was, the blog post was in response to that, going into more detail. I don't see it though. And then another sort of cool use of generative stuff. So this is a Discord-based generative art game, where my understanding is that it's sort of like a little bit role-playing, where everyone is a member of this bureau of multiversal arbitration, where the sort of the conceit is that people from across the universe are like, hey, I need, the best pony that can pick locks or whatever, and then people try to generate images based on that prompt, and whoever's image gets the most votes wins. So that's just sort of the general idea of the game. I think it sounds fun. It's on Discord if you're interested. And yeah, a fun communal art project, which I like. I like art. I like art that makes artists' lives better. Let me put it that way. All right, politics. Mostly this is going to be court cases, I'll tell you right now. Starting off with, this didn't load. My God, again with the get out of here. So this is tweeting from the courtroom from a reporter who focuses on data protection and security. His name is Sam Clark, at SGClark92 on Twitter. And he tweeted, "I'm in a busy London courtroom this morning and for the next 3 days to cover Clearview AI's appeal against the ICO's $7.5 million fine and enforcement notice. Clearview's skeleton arguments come to 74 pages, double-sided." And it's just basically an update on how the court case has gone. My understanding is that it just sort of like, they heard arguments and recessed. And who knows when they will come up with a decision. So basically, the UK, the ICO, I don't know what that stands for. The government in the UK was like, Clearview, you've done crimes. You know, must pay restitution to the state. And Clearview's like, no, we didn't. For those of you who don't know, Clearview is a company which has harvested pretty much everybody's face data and sells access to it, well, or access to algorithms trained on it for large-scale facial recognition. I think they mostly focus on providing it to government organizations and police. It's one of my least favorite companies. They almost certainly have my data in it, and I have no way of making them stop. Anyway, so they are currently in court in the UK. They are also in court in the US. So there is a lawsuit filed in the ALA-MEDA County Superior Court on behalf of Mi Gente, NorCal Resist, and 4 individual plaintiffs who allege that Clearview AI violated their rights under the California Constitution, California's Consumer Protection and Privacy Law, which is among the most consumer-friendly in the nation, is the most consumer-friendly in the nation, and California common law. The plaintiffs also sued 4 Californian law enforcement agencies who they claim aid and abet Clearview's illegal practices. So this court case is ongoing. Clearview, I believe they recently tried to get it dismissed and the judge was like, nah, you're going to court. And I will say I signed an amicus brief for this lawsuit as a concerned machine learning practitioner. So, fingers crossed. Also being sued currently is Meta. So Tanya O'Carroll is suing Meta, I believe in the UK under GDPR. Yes. So this is from AWO.agency, a new data rights agency. And this is a press statement from our client, Tanya O'Carroll, relating to her case against Meta. The statement is produced by our client and her press agency, DI:GA. Ms. O'Carroll is a senior fellow at Foxglove who have made a further statement about the case. Oh, Foxglove's made the further statement. Okay. Olaf says, interesting, Judge Tapman. I mean, I'm not a judge, but I am a person who has to live in this society and knows about machine learning and has opinions. Yeah. Clearview AI prosecution courtroom sketch. I wrote what? So I didn't write the amicus brief, I signed the amicus curiae brief. So basically, an amicus curiae brief is people who don't have a stake in the court case, but are sort of interested in the outcome. So what they can do is they can write like a letter being like, hey, here's some relevant information that you should know. And so I and a bunch of other people working in the ML ethics space, you know, signed one of these briefs for the I don't know which one's the plaintiffs and which one's the defendants, but the people who are suing Clearview being like, hey, these systems don't work and are dangerous and etc. I think it was posted on Twitter. I can dig it up if anyone's really interested. I don't have the link super handy. I did not write it. I signed it and agreed to it. Basically like signing a letter kind of thing. Like a letter in support of something. Hey, Ledger. They need to sue Palantir from your mouth to the universe, man. Another company I just wish didn't exist. I just wish it didn't exist. Anyway. The coffee's cold. Still really good coffee. Anyway, so Meta is also being sued under GDPR in the UK High Court. We'll see how this goes. Again, fingers crossed. Did I include the article? Yes, I did include the article about her. So she is a data privacy advocate, I think. She works in the area, right? Human rights campaigner. And basically she found that she was being served very targeted ads and there was no way for her to get out of it. And so she is suing about that, and fingers crossed. The Digital Services Act, which I don't think applies to the UK because they're not in the EU anymore, does limit what you can do for targeted advertising. I think GDPR does cover the UK. I don't think GSA does. The DSA does. This sounds like a question for a lawyer or, someone who knows more about law than I do. But yes, limiting the ability of technology companies to do targeted advertising is certainly on the menu legislatively and also in terms of like common law. So, yep. Hello, Mean Machine. Lador says, the stuff those people can do would make Winnie the Pooh in Beijing jealous. May they be sued into oblivion. Yeah, I would love for Palantir to just stop existing. I've got a list. If someone gave me a magic genie wand and was like, you can stop 5 companies from existing, I would certainly have some on the list already. Aw, thank you, Soren. I really enjoyed your stream. Really interesting articles. Thank you. Ulf says, don't worry, Palantir just sells linear regression. Speaking about lying about technology, so this is from Motherboard. It's by Janice Rose, who I think we actually saw another article by Janice earlier today, published November 21st, 2022. ID.me lied about its facial recognition tech, Congress says. The identity software delayed Americans from getting unemployment checks during a critical period of the pandemic. This was, I don't know how many of y'all were paying attention at this point or if this is crossed your radar at all, but basically in order to get unemployment as sort of like an anti-fraud measure, there was facial recognition technology used by this company. And members of Congress, quote, say the company misrepresented how its technology works and downplayed excessive wait times, which stopped Americans from collecting unemployment benefits. New evidence shows that ID.me inaccurately overstated its capacity to conduct identity verification services to the Internal Revenue Service and made baseless claims about the amount of federal funds lost to pandemic fraud in an attempt to increase demand for its identity verification services. As I remember, you had an option between using the automatic facial recognition service or talking to a person. It was a while ago. It was a couple years ago. So, Alexi says Dr. Tapman's enemy list. Yeah. Oh, hey, Me Machine. I just registered at Kaggle. Palantir and Clearview are a threat to freedom. I definitely agree. Yep. The report also said that ID.me, which received $45 million in COVID relief funds from at least 25 state agencies, misrepresented the excessively long wait times it forced on people trying to claim emergency benefits like unemployment insurance and child tax credit payments. Wait times for video chats were as long as 4 to 9 hours in some states, which is not great. So basically, this company was paid a lot of money and lied to the federal and state level governments about the ability of their systems to handle things. Also misrepresented facts about fraud. Yeah, all kind of not great. The company says, especially about the wait times, we worked tirelessly to serve Americans who needed aid and regret the long wait times that individuals endured while we fought to clear fraud out of the system, the company wrote in a press release. This situation was short-lived and temporary and caused by historic fraud. So again, they're centering the frauds that congressional members say that they misrepresented the amount of. Excluding specific episodes, wait times have generally been below 30 minutes as they are today. The IRS and other government agencies said they would stop using ID.me's facial recognition tech earlier this year after widespread backlash from benefits recipients and politicians. I'm pretty sure I wrote my representatives about this as well and asked them to stop doing that. They stopped doing it. Cool. Yep. Congress members noted inconsistencies the companies had made in describing its facial recognition systems, which use a massive facial recognition database to identify benefits recipients. Not only does this violate individuals' privacies, but the inevitable false matches associated with one-to-many recognition can result in applicants being wrongly denied desperately needed services for weeks or even months as they tried to get their case reviewed, which, yeah, not great. So, company misrepresented the capabilities of their software. Where have we seen that before? And as a result is facing censure from the US government to whom it sold its services, which was what's the word I'm looking for? Funded by the US public. Not going great for this company, not creating a lot of trust in this type of technology, which, to be fair, I don't think facial recognition technology is something that we should be using, period, at all. I'm also against means testing for aid, but that's like a separate thing. Yeah. Not great. Not great all around. Bad job, ID.me. Bad job. Yeah. Oh, Latra says, why can't I sub? Am I avoiding affiliate on purpose? Yes, I am actually, and the reason is because I stream to both YouTube and Twitch, and if I'm an affiliate, I can't do that anymore. I have to only be on Twitch. I know some people prefer Twitch, which is why I keep streaming it to there, but yes, I've chosen not to be an affiliate. So, yep. Anyway, if you do want to support me, oh, there it is. I was like, where's my little, wait, I got really big, one sec. Probably the easiest way is on my, what's this? It's on my Ko-fi, which is ko-fi.com/rctatman. Next up. So this, so we talked a little bit ago about the comment period on the FTC's rule-making, exploratory, whatever. Basically, they're like, hey, we think we might do some more tech legislation. What do y'all think? And this one, somebody wrote a comment that included a bunch of, large language model generated output and just like submitted it as a comment on this public document. And of course it was made publicly, so and in an official government proceeding, so it's just available. What? I can't believe somebody did this. What a wild decision to make. And to be fair, somebody did recently read in Congress something that was generated by a large language model as well. I just feel like it genuinely misrepresents the language output that you are sharing. Anyway, I just want to share that somebody did that, and I think that it's wild that they did that, and what a choice. What a choice. All right, next up. Oh, I promise we only have 3 more bummers, and then it gets better. So, hey, ACLU. ShotSpotter is something that we've talked about on the channel before. So they're a company that claims they can detect gunshots by installing a bunch of microphones in public places. Independent research has not suggested that they can, in fact, do this. This piece is from the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union. It was written by Jay Stanley. And this was a while ago. This was on May 5th, 2005. Senior policy analyst, ACLU Speech Privacy and Technology Project. But I have been keeping kind of a close eye on ShotSpotter, and I did not know that this was a thing, and I learned about it. So a couple of things to bring up here. First of all is that they retain the data that the microphones pick up for, when, as of this writing, 48 hours on device, question mark? Not super clear. ShotSpotter did offer for one of the ACLU people to take a look at their code base, but they did not, were not amenable to open sourcing any of their code. And as the person who, they offered it to pointed out, they could at any point after it was looked at change it, and no one would be any of the wiser. But the other thing that I did not know, and again, this may have changed because this came out a couple of years ago. Where is it? I'm looking for a specific thing. Yes. As of 2015, and I don't know if this has changed, but I'm guessing that, if the data was collected while this clause was in the terms of service, they still maintain those rights. But ShotSpotter's terms of service, in which the company reserves the right to own and sell the data it collects. Clark says the intent there is to, quote, develop a big data play that is monetized with a large federal agency or research institution buying their data. Alexi says, can't the shots be recognized by something like a client-based ad? Well, I will say that the false positive rate for the system is so high as to be useless. Something that some of you may not know is that in most states in the United States, fireworks are legal and people just like to set them off. So that's led to some false positives. There have been a lot of false positives, basically. There's no compelling evidence. And to my knowledge, ShotSpotter has not provided any compelling evidence that their technology actually does what they can say it can do, besides them basically just being like, trust us and give us a lot of money from public coffers. What it has done is it has summoned police to various places, and at least one instance, I believe, we talked about it on the channel. Let me see if I can remember the exact. Let me find the exact citation. I don't want to say something wrong. Yes, so in at least one instance, it may have contributed to the death of a young man. A child. 13, Adam Toledo. God. Anyway, sorry, that was in Chicago. Ooh, yee! I'm gonna take a little drink of water. So it has certainly put the police in places where they would not otherwise have been, in a way that directly led to harm. I don't believe that it works, and I did not know that they had the right to own and sell any data it collects. That was news to me, so yeah. Yup. US is a crazy country. I mean, I'm from here, I mostly grew up here. It's where all my people are, like my family, my kin. And there's many things I love about it, but I am not blind to the pretty massive issues we have, and I would say that this is one of them. All right. And this is just an FYI. So after Roe v. Wade was overturned, again, in the United States, that was the court case that was one of the main pieces of precedent that gave us a right to privacy, and also specifically protected the rights of people to be able to get an abortion legally. One thing that Google said that they would do is they wouldn't store data about people seeking for abortions, which is important because in one 6-month period in 2021, Google received nearly 47,000 law enforcement requests affecting more than 100,000 accounts and responded with some amount of data to 80% of them. So Google has a history of working very closely with the police, particularly in serving geofencing warrants. So this is a type of warrant where the police are like, we want to know everybody who is within, half a mile of this location over the last 24 hours. Very, very broad. You may not even know that your data was included in it. Oh, sorry, let me say the source. So this is from The Guardian, a UK newspaper. The article was written by Joanna Bhuiyan, Bhuiyn, who is in New York, published Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. And the title is Googling Abortion, Your Details Aren't as Private as You Think. So this hi, buddy. Yes, you're very cute. Oh, you think it's lunchtime, huh? So this was an independent investigation into the data retention of... Can I hop up? Oh, dog cameo. Yeah. Yeah. Here he is. Hey, Benson. Yes. This is Benson. He's the barker. He's a Chihuahua mix. He is not a big dog. Anyway, so this independent investigation, they took a fresh Android device. They, basically role played that they were trying to get an abortion. And then they were double checking like how long that data was held, because Google said that they would delete the data. And what they found was that after they wrote it, right, or after they did the experiment, they waited for a couple weeks and the data was still there. And given the amount of data that Google hands over to the police, that do not get on the keyboard. Don't get on the keyboard. I don't know if you can see his little face. Hi. Yeah. He's got his hands on my desk. I've moved the keyboard. I think it's safe. Yeah. Oh, are you chilly? Here, let me give you a blanket. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I know that that is something that a lot of people don't like. I apologize. Yes, so based on their investigation, it does not seem like this data is actually being deleted, certainly not being deleted quickly. So FYI, good to know. Get on that, Google. Please fulfill your promises. Yeah. Lunchtime. Yeah, that's what he thinks. All right. And finally, this story is from Coda, and I just thought it was particularly interesting. So this is by Liam Scott. It was published November 17th, 2022, and the title is China is Gaining Control of the World's Data as the US Stands By. And I think the title is a little bit sensationalist, but the general point they're making in the article I think was very interesting. So it was a talk with Anne? That must be said Anne, Aynne, Kokas, Kokas, who has just published a new book, Trafficking Data, How China is Winning the Battle for Digital Sovereignty. Like, I think that's just like weirdly antagonistic framing. But the general point here is that I think this idea of trafficking data is particularly interesting. I hadn't really heard of it before. And the idea is that someone's data is moved to another country without their knowledge or consent and is used for secondary uses that they are not aware of. So I don't, we talked on Tuesday about data sovereignty, particularly of indigenous communities. And this is sort of expanding that concept to everyone and talking about, hey, who has data about you? How much control do you have over your specific data? Here they're talking about, countries rather than indigenous nations. But I think it's just interesting and an interesting framing that I hadn't read before. So if you are interested, might be a good book to read. I don't know if it's actually out yet, but forthcoming. And I think this is also helpful for folks. So they're discussing a quote from the book. Most people are simply not exciting intelligence targets, talking about how a lot of the utility of these systems is at scale and how what is most useful for people is having, data on everybody in Utah rather than, Matt Smith, 1234 Main Street likes this type of burrito or something like that. So Ulf says, crime prediction with facial recognition has the same assumptions as facial psychometrics. Was kind of a century old and turned out not to work. It's voodoo science today. Yes, I mean, it is a tool of violence and oppression designed to continue cycles of harm. And I don't know how else people can frame it. So, Lexi says, I heard China seems to buy shares in different data collecting companies. Top sneaky. I'm not an area of my expertise, but I do think that thinking about, particularly as technologists and engineers, okay, who's going to get access to this data and what possible secondary uses could it have, right? So just like thinking about this abortion data, the primary use is, oh, hey, helping people find, the things that they need. The secondary use is to prosecute people for doing that, right? And lots of different types of data that has secondary uses that could potentially harm users. And I think it's important that we as technologists keep it in mind and think about it. So, yeah. Alexi says, minus 200 social credit points for Dr. Tappan. I don't think it's actually a thing. I think there were like small scale tests that aren't currently running anymore. So the social credit system in China, that's my understanding. Again, not an area of my expertise. All right, finally, that's it. We're done with the bummers. Time for fun. Yay. Could you imagine if I still had another hour of talking about research papers? This is why I've split the streams. I don't feel exhausted anymore. I mean, I'm still tired, but. All right, next up, first, I just thought this was cool. So this is from the Virginia Mercury. I've mentioned before, I live in Virginia in the United States. It's a local nonprofit news organization. And Virginia is, if you're not familiar, it's on the Atlantic Ocean. It has a bunch of bays and waterways and tributaries. We were historically really known for shellfish, particularly crab, oysters, etc. And as in many places in the United States, we've had sort of a history, especially a recent history, of bivalve populations being harmed. We've got an invasive mussel called zebra mussels that are a big problem. It's true of most places in the US. Pretty sure it's in the Great Lakes. Also, there's a bunch of big chemical companies that dump into one of our major tributaries, or at least did historically, and were a huge source of pollution and really, really harmed the, aquatic ecosystems. But one of the things that local advocacy and environmental advocacy organizations are doing is they're using digital technology and citizen science to do data collection to have a better understanding of the system health. So this is, the title is Environmental Groups Using Digital Tech to Bolster Data Collection by Charlie Paulin, probably, Paullin, published November 18th, 2022. And it just talks about all of the different, things that they are using to help collect information about these environmental issues. So Conserve Virginia is a vast compilation of different data sets used to identify the best areas where lands can be conserved, right? So lots of areas where you might focus your energy, which are going to be the most impactful. The Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation creates and maintains that. Wetlands Watch looks at sea level rise. So again, Virginia's on the coast of the Atlantic. We have a lot of very low-lying land and islands that are currently becoming less islands and more, marshes. So it continues to be very pressing to get a lot of data about this to try and figure out what's going on. They work with the Girl Scouts. They have an annual event to document the rise of significantly larger high tides that result from solar and lunar alignments at that time of year. Neap tides? Is that what they're called? Like spring and neap tides, right? Spring tides. Okay, so king tides are spring tides, and neap tides are like the small ones that happen after it. Anyway, more moon stuff. We're talking about the moon a lot on the channel recently. They've got some maps for mussels. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation is a super big, super active organization in the area. Yeah, I just thought it was cool. So you can see real-time information about potential algae blooms, because some of these can be dangerous to humans, and also obviously there's a lot of water. Oh, also here's Virginia. Well, it's this sort of triangular shape here, and then Washington DC is right above it. I don't assume everyone's familiar with US geography. So yeah, just lots of interesting uses of technology to help scientists understand what's going on and address environmental challenges. So Alexi says plus 50 social credit points. Frog moon. Yes, exactly. That's one of the named full moons. So, or I guess clam moon. That's not one of them, but it could be. All right, next up, we have this Mozilla. Oh, you can't hear that, huh? Mozilla. We have this Mastodon post, there we go, from Mark Rydell on sigmoid.social, which I mentioned is one of the ones that's pretty active, and I'll pop this to you into the chat if you want to check it out. And it's from Janelle Shane from AI Weirdness. We shared her post on Galactica earlier. Like I said, Janelle's really cool. If you don't follow her, you should follow her. Anyway, it's a video that we can't see because it's, well, you can see, but you can't hear. But it's an African gray parrot right here, and it's making a shopping list using, I believe, an Alexa? That looks like an Echo. It's making a shopping list using the voice interactivity tools, which I just thought was funny. I would put this in the same bucket as like, you know those door handles that are more accessible, the sort of like lever shaped ones that you just press down on instead of like the knob shaped ones that you turn? And you know how they're so accessible that bears can use them? I would say that this is on that spectrum of accessible technology that opens interspecies accessibility as well, which I don't think is an issue, right? I just think it's funny. All right. Alexi says, was it a video where an African gray ordered a bunch of peanuts? I don't remember exactly what they ordered, but it sounds right, yeah. Also, as a language technologist, that's an unintended use. You probably want to think about it, right? You probably want to have a parrot detector, right? To be like, hey, if a parrot's placing this order, maybe don't actually place this order. Parrots don't know about money. So, says, what's your opinion on all us new people on Mastodon? Well, it's fine. I use Mastodon. I use Twitter. I try to avoid having all my eggs in the same digital basket. So it's nice to have a little bit more diversity in the ecosystem. And I mean, I've only been on Mastodon since like April, so I'm not an old timer. Also, this is going to be paywalled. I'll just talk about it. So this is a New York Times article, Saluting in Solidarity by Rayhan Harmanchi, Harmanci, from November 23rd. And basically, it's talking about the salute emoji. So for those of you who are on Twitter, when people were fired from Twitter or resigned, they would include the salute emoji in a lot of their tweets, being like, you know, good serving with you, we did good work together, we're no longer together. So it was sort of like a symbol of, you know, solidarity. And I think just an interesting, you know, digital anthropology piece on a specific usage of a specific emoji in a particular moment, because it's not just gestural, right? Like, it is that gesture, but there's an additional social meaning to it, which I suppose is always usually true of gestures, right? They generally have additional social meaning to them. But in this case, it is specifically the emoji. It is not the gesture itself. I don't think it would have had the same effect if you'd posted a video of you actually saluting. So just interesting. I'll actually do this one last. Oh my god. Goodbye. Ben's in a society, he doesn't want to be on my lap anymore. So I saw this on Twitter. This is from Jose Marie Feliciano, Sari Feliciano on Twitter, USDA data scientist, and it is an image of some charts that are bar charts with error bars on them, except that the error bars are not actually error bars. They're just a typed letter T on the top of the chart, which is delightful. I think that's just, I don't know. There's something very, very charming about that, even if it is not actually perhaps, you know, very correct. And it is, in fact, from an actual paper, and the paper is monitoring of sports health indicators based on wearable nano biosensors. So we sort of mentioned, you know, I bet I know exactly what happened. I bet they got, you know, review that was like, hey, you need to add error bars. And they were like, I don't know how to add error bars. So they just put a T on top of them. But anyway, I just think it's obviously not great science, but still very charming. Alexi says, I remember a story where some facility made an improved trash can lock to protect from bears. They had a problem that it became too complicated for some humans. Yeah. Bears and humans, very similar, right? We have sort of the same niche. We're just much smaller and squishier, which is kind of an issue for us, but big omnivores. All right. And this final thing, so this is a game that I thought we might play together for a little bit until I get bored. And the game is Which is AI? And I double checked. This is just by someone who seems like they were interested. It doesn't seem like necessarily a data harvesting thing, but even if it was, this is data I'm okay with sharing. So the game is you look at these images and you figure out which one is AI generated. It's this one. And the aim is to get the highest score you possibly can. And every time you get one wrong, it resets from nothing. This one. And I think it's just a nice way of training yourself to notice generated images. So I don't know if you can see the hands on this, but it is wild. There's also up in the corner, you can see what the prompt was. In this case, it was painting, and that's not how hands work, my dude. That is not real. Illustration. Park. This one. Anyway, I think it's just a nice way for you to test yourself on how good you are at identifying AI art, which I think is a good and important skill to develop, particularly for being, skeptical. It would help if these things weren't quite so small. They didn't get that much bigger, did they? Those trees don't look right. Nope, I was wrong. It was the rocks what didn't look right. So yeah, just an interesting little game, nice time killer, maybe a fun party game as well. Beach. Is it that one? It is that one. Don't think it's that one. I think my highest score was like 30 maybe? Wait, actually, let me zoom in on some of this text. That's not real text. Ulf says, I got to 5. Yeah. Alexi says, and teach computers to make it better. So like I said, I don't think this is actually a data harvesting project. Painting was the prompt here. Those look real, those look real. It would be helpful if things were bigger. Can I make this bigger, actually? No, I can just search for related content. Those trees seem improbable. I think they're attached in a way. Well, let's see. I did, okay. It's easier on a bigger screen, I will tell you that. I only use like about a quarter of my monitor while I'm streaming. Alexi says, there's also a nice game of generating the prompt from the generated image. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it can be fun, and I think it's good and helpful to, train these muscles, because we're all going to be seeing a lot of generated art in the future, whether we like it or not. There's no way somebody took that photo and then put it on the internet. Yep. Connection is not secure on that site. Yeah, it isn't. That's okay. That's the only thing I use this this particular browser for, so I'm not super worried about it. Bangshi says, this reminds me of the GeoGuessr guy on TikTok, but with AI images. Yeah, definitely. very similar. What was the prompt on this one? Flower. I'm just kidding. There's no way. Yeah. I'm just getting sidetracked now. It's a fun game. I'm enjoying it. Nope, that's not what hands look like. The hands are, for me, a big giveaway. What was the prompt? Illustration. There's something messed up about those birds. That's not how birds work. Illustration again. Yeah, that's not how plants work either. Boof. I think what's most helpful here is sort of knowing about biology. I don't talk about it a whole bunch on the channel, but one of my interests is anatomy. Which is something I read about on my own time. And also, perhaps obviously, botany. No. Nope. Anyway, you can also definitely see some artifacts of some of the training data here, right? Like the illustration, we're clearly trained on older style professional illustrations from text. It looks like they have a lot of visual influence from like Audubon stuff. Nope. You can see that in particular, the ones that focus on the sky seem to have been trained in a specific format. Absolutely not. Nice try. A lot of them have this artifact of the sort of like black images around. No, not how shoulders is. Boof. Okay, I wasn't super confident about that. Anyway, gamification for data annotation is a thing. It definitely is. And not something I am against, right? Like I've done Zooniverse just like as a fun thing to do on my own before. We were just talking about sort of citizen science. Ooh, this one's challenging. Sky was the prompt. I'm not certain about this. Okay. I see there is some repetition in the prompts because we've seen this one before, and I got that correct because I just remembered which one it was. Some extra isomers. Yeah, that's definitely, also some of the strategies I'm using are thinking about if you were scanning over this, would a little patch of pixels look good? Would all the little patches of pixels look good, but sort of the outer shape doesn't, right? I'm not a camera expert, but that don't look right. That just don't look right, right? Drawing. Can I make them bigger? I want to check. That looks good to me. That does not. Yeah, we've already seen that one. Anyway, sorry, I'm just getting really distracted because I love a good game. So for this one, that looks right. Tree. These two I'm not concerned about. Some of the other ones are sort of like a thing. Alexi says this free data annotation site does not exist. Indeed. I'm not confident. This feels the least good to me. Okay. Yep, there's no, absolutely not. That's not how fabric or shoulders work. No, no, absolutely not. Pylons don't become smudgy on the edges. That's not a thing. Also, no, no, wrong. Not an expert. No. Also, images that have things that look like people who look like what's the name of this actress? She was in Harry Potter. You know the one. Emma, maybe? No, that's not a hand. Nice try. Yes, the 4- and 8-legged beetles. Get out of here. Get out of here. Alexi says Dolly DLE. I'm not familiar with that. I'm just kidding. No. It's not what galaxies look like. Nope. I am getting very sucked in. I apologize. I should probably call it a day and wrap it up because my dog wants to get fed. Anyway, if you're interested in playing, I pasted the link. Dolly DLE is much more challenging. Yeah, it looks like a lot of these were sort of like generated and then like as a set. And there's also definitely repetition in here. Perhaps we'll do that at some point in the future on some stream where I'm just feeling tired. I'm gonna check this out in another tab. Oh, it's been retired. So this looks like it may in fact, oh, I gotcha. So this is the, this is what Alexi mentioned about trying to get the, guessing the prompts given the images. So it's the other way around. All right. Something like Renaissance cat with a cabbage. I don't tend to like these type of fill in the blanks. Possibly Baroque. Okay, so I got A correct or cat and cabbage correct. Oh, you have to guess the exact thing. This is the type of word game where I'm gonna really struggle. Maybe, I don't know, Italian merchant sad cat with a cabbage. Anyway, I'm also not particularly good at Wheel of Fortune. Yes, if any of you are interested, I'll pop the link to this in the chat as well if you want to try it out. I find it much easier to identify the wrong image than I do to guess the prompt. All right, I'm gonna call it there. It's been 2.5 hours. My voice is kind of starting to go, but this was definitely much easier for me to not also have the research papers in the same stream. So I think it's definitely helpful for me to separate them apart. And it also gives us more time to talk about each of the research papers. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I apologize for those of you who are listening to this as a podcast. That last little bit was probably awful. I was looking at images and clicking on the one that was wrong. And if you want to check out what that looked like, I guess you can head to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@RCTATMAN. I have a handle now, the same one. There's a much simpler word dolly, WARDALLE. Maybe we'll check that out at some point in the future. But for now, I think I'm going to call it a day. And before I leave, I do want to say a big thank you to all of my wonderful supporters, many of whom were in chat today. Appreciate you. I appreciate everyone watching. My monthly supporters help me pay my bills, though, which I appreciate a little bit more. If you're interested in joining them, you can support me at ko-fi.com/RCTATMAN. And I have actually added, let me actually pull up the website. I didn't pull it up previously. A couple more tiers. I mentioned this on Tuesday, but for those of you who didn't watch, I've added a couple more tiers if you would like something a little different. Nope. Yep, there we go. For those of you who were in the links please tier before, you're now in all the links please. Everything will be the same, except you'll get an extra research paper post on Tuesdays. If you're interested in just the research papers, which is going to be in an annotated bibliography style, that's on a new tier. I opened up a couple more spots in the Chit Chat Club. We meet monthly. We chat about stuff. It's a good time. Usually it's on the 3rd or 4th Friday of the month at the same time as stream. And then I added kind of a joke tier, which is if you want your name fancy in the credits, these credits, you can get that. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Lexi says it was a lot of fun. Oh, good. I had a good time too. I think the separation is definitely helping me. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you on Tuesday for our paper reading stream, which I'm really looking forward to. If you are in the all the links please tier, this middle one, which everyone who is previously in the links please tier is already, you already got the links before stream. You got links to everything we talked about. So hopefully you enjoy those, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Bye.